Шановні колеги, шановні друзі.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, greetings everyone on our meeting. First of all, I would like to say that today we are using two languages, therefore you can use the headsets and switch from English to Ukrainian and from Ukrainian to English. And dear friends, today in Ukraine we have the Day of the Defenders who passed away, who deceased due to the military actions in Ukraine. Thank you. So, dear colleagues, today Ukrainian organization Resilient Ukraine, together with Mediapatriots, continue our meetings on what is resilience for Ukraine, for the partners, and as for the agenda, a few words. Today we will work for 2 hours, but that's not the conference. I would like to clarify it from the beginning, because we would like to have a discussion that is dialogue, and we would like to exchange opinions, and therefore please feel free to participate, to ask questions, and to clarify the issues which we need to understand. So after each meeting, we will have the opportunity to ask the questions. So we are not going to postpone the dialogue for the time after our discussion, after our speeches. And please, dear participants, and those of you who are watching us on YouTube today, and also on the other social networks. Security. And all of us understand, in case we will have a red alarm, we can go downstairs to the basement, and we will interrupt our broadcasting. So why all of us are here? Why did we invite our colleagues from the other countries? Why did we invite practitioners from Ukraine? The first objective we have is to help people, to help Ukrainians to understand how to live in this difficult time, because all of us understand that there are no signs that this war is going to be over soon. So we have to prepare the people, to prepare Ramada communities for these long-lasting period of difficult ones. And also we have the infrastructure of resilience. For a few years we have the concept of the resilience provision developed and signed by the president. In 2023, the Cabinet of Ministers has approved the action plan on the implementation of the concept of the resilience, and this year we are already developing the draft laws for this plan, and therefore we as an experts, we as representatives of different environments, we could have supported the state with this new phenomenon of crisis, which has significant cascade consequences, hybrid consequences, informational impacts. This is a crisis we are going to live in for a long time, and therefore we have to understand it. And also, together we can think and exchange our opinions how in the framework of the concept of resilience based on 3 stages: preparation for the crisis period, overcoming the situation, the continuous management, and also restoration. In the framework of these 3 stages, we could consider how can people prepare themselves better for the new type of relations. Dear colleagues, before we start our dialogue, I would like to introduce all the participants we have today. I would like to present Mati Raidma from Estonia, the expert on civilian protection and emergency management, member of UNDAC, head of the Estonian delegation to the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. Mati is one of the developers of trainings we are conducting together with the Resilient Ukraine in different parts of Ukraine, and Mati and Dmitro can tell you more about the experience of engaging police, the state emergency situation service in the trainings. What kind of practical experience do they have for the civilians? Petr Haugeberg, deputy head of NATO representation in Ukraine, greeting in Ukraine. The contribution of NATO to the Ukrainian resilience concept development is also important. And we know that in Vilnius we had a special communique dedicated to resilience, and we hope that today we will be able to discuss on how we can support government and Roma communities to implement the principles of resilience, to be able to prepare to the practical challenges of this winter and for the future challenges. Dmitro Teperik, leading expert on public resilience, Director General of the NGO Resilient Ukraine. He is also from Estonia. Dmitro will be able to talk more about the trainings because he is the co-author of these trainings, and also we're going to talk about the impact and the feedback from the people who participated in these intersectional trainings. Ivana Boyakivska, acting head of the Educational Security Service Organization Unit of the Petro Police Department, police captain, greetings. And of course, one of the reasons why we gather together here, that is the 1st, 2nd September, when children are going to go to school, and it is important for us to provide the parents, the students with recommendations on how to organize their studies better. And I hope that these experience exchange and what we have in Ukraine, and also the experience of our colleagues from abroad, will be able to prepare the schools for this difficult time. Oleg Erkun and Vladislav Bakhnyuk, greetings, dear colleagues, that are the representatives of the State Emergency Situation Service. That is probably one of the key agencies which are in charge of the security culture, because the State Security Service cooperates a lot with the local authorities and in fact with all the spheres in Ukraine, and therefore we hope that you will share your observations on how this resilience system develops. And I'm very glad that we will be able to discuss the educational process and advantages and disadvantages we have so far, and what can be amended, of course, if we will have time. Yevhen Andrushuk, the officer of the CIMIC, and today we're going to talk about energy resilience together with you, and maybe we will use Sumska Oblast as an example. We will talk about your work in Roma communities and also about your recommendations. How can we prove something in the next month. And also, I'm very glad to see Roman Zinchenko here with us. He is a co-founder of a very strong organization, Greencubator. And of course, now one of the key things discussed in media, that is energy. And today we have a unique opportunity to understand what is actually happening in these sphere and how can we prepare better as the households, as how some certain industries can undertake some measures to take into account all the experience, lessons learned of the previous periods, and to overcome this winter period with as good as possible. Roman works in Roma communities, and therefore he knows what is happening on the level of the villages, towns, and your experience will be very important for us today. And also we would like to greet here Leslie Wilson, Vulnerable Group Specialist, Resilient Ukraine Project. Miss Leslie has a huge, vast experience in the US in the civil protection, and since 2022, from May 2022, she works in the frontline territories. Now she works in Chernobylska zone in the villages close to Chernobyl, and Miss Leslie helps to help these from other communities to recover after 2022, after deliberation to occupation, after liberation. And as recovery is the third point of this strategy, I hope that today, with the support of Ms. Leslie, we'll be able to understand better how we can recover during the war. And also we have Anastasia Petik, lawyer and cybersecurity expert, co-founder and chairman of the board of NGO Minzmin. We do understand that resilience is also related to the cognitive impact, to the informational campaigns. So we would like to understand this phenomenon better. And of course, we have Roxolana Nezdarenko, research management of the Center for Sociological Research, Decentralization and Regional Development, Kyiv School of Economics. Kyiv School of Economics traditionally pays a lot of attention to the researches of the resilience on the local level, on the level of Gramadas. The Kyiv School of Economy has conducted strong researches in this area, and I think that it's also important to understand what is your opinion. How can we move forward, and how can resilience in Ukraine develop? So, dear colleagues, also, I would like to welcome all our guests who have gathered in Ukraine Crisis Media Center with us. And today we have also in the dialogue the representatives of the consultative mission of the European Union can participate in our dialogue. Greetings. That is a mission on the reforms in the civil sphere, which has contributed a lot to the development of this sector in Ukraine. And they are working with the national police, with the state's emergency situation services. So we will really appreciate if you participate in our discussion. So, dear colleagues, so I would like to pass the floor to Mate Raidma, expert on civil protection and emergency management. Mate worked in Estonia on the top positions in the Estonian Emergency Situation Service, and later he was a member of the parliament of the Estonian parliament. He has a vast international experience in international missions on overcoming extraordinary situations. So I would like to pass the floor to you. What is your perspective of the development of resilience and security culture in Ukraine? Maybe you can provide us with the example of Ukraine, or maybe your international experience also maybe Estonia experience. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. So proud to be here with experts in different fields talking about resilience, what is my, let's say, life job. I'd like to start with maybe a bit more global issues, just to explain the challenges and then maybe give some reasons why it is today so unusual situation, because normally we're thinking that we had decades to be ready for everything, for disasters, for catastrophes. First, there is two big things, defense and civil crisis. They have different structures, understandings, and principles. Usually, all countries thought that they're going in following order. It means first is civilian crisis management, and then if war happens, then going to be a highest crisis, war. And in war, primary main work is defend your country, your territorial integrity, your independence. Why it was like that? Because we have international law, and international law talks about rules during the war and protection of the civil society during the war. And everyone believed that. And today in Ukraine we see that terrorists, Russia, ignoring that. It means we are in a new situation where those two things are together. On one side, all defense and military side, and on the other hand, all civilian crisis management. And in quite long period, as Andrei mentioned. And this is a challenge. Maybe some differences between of those two words to better understand. First, in military side, it's much more clearer structure, understanding, mission, goal. And also mechanism, let's say, works in vertical philosophy. In civilian side, it is not like that, because there are a lot of players, a lot of responsible agencies, ministries, a lot of goals. And there, the framework is resilience. How to have a resilient state during the crisis, especially here in Ukraine during the war. It includes all vital services, let's say social, pensions, etc. Then resilience of infrastructure, electricity, water, communication, and then resilience of population, society. And you can imagine how many players involved on all this field. And because that main idea of resilience is how to turn this vertical ideological here in horizontal. Because key word is cooperation and coordination of the cooperation for state players. On the other hand, there is key thing here in Ukraine today that it is a trust. How population trust its leaders, its government. And this is why Russia attacks electricity network, why Russia attacks civil population, schools, and why they also doing all information warfare to take down a trust And if the trust will decrease, then it's much easier for them to have battle in this other field. But this trust, it is target where we all have to work together. And this is something, but we're trying to do via different trainings, and we see that it seems really easy, but in real life it is extremely difficult to take around the table different sectors. Let's say government, uniformed people, administrations, or the region or local government, media, volunteers, etc., to work together. And here we experienced that this trust has to build much more tighter than at the moment. Because all those resilience issues, they need cross-sectoral cooperation. They need to be involved in all different agencies and different players, because main target is a civil population, how they surviving and how they are ready for different crisis situations, which today, of course, in Ukraine, in highest level and in war scenario. So maybe for very beginning, this is description how difficult challenge it is, but I'm absolutely sure that Ukraine has a great people. We had a really great exercise in 8 regions, and it shows that it is possible. But again, now last point you mentioned security culture. And security culture means that this is something where all are involved. You can't build up security culture in vertical order. You have to involve all society. All society have to feel that they are partners. From experience of those exercises, for example, NGOs who usually positioning themselves in other side of the line against government, but there is a place where we have to work together. NGOs have to understand that they are partners for government side, and government side has to understand that NGOs are not something in toolbox, but partners around the table in very beginning, in planning phase. We had to, and then this is maybe again one difference, that in military side all plans understandably closed and secret. In security culture area, the plans has to be open, and all society has to take part of that. Then it will work, and then population will understand that state works with their security, and they are also players, and they are also members around the table to think how to be better prepared, how to more effectively react if something happens, and how to recover. And keyword together. Thank you.
Маті, дуже дякую. Хотів би
Thank you very much, Marty. I would like to remind you that you have the opportunity to ask the question if you have any. Matty, I would like to ask you from the very beginning. So once I met the message, which was clarifying the difference between the concept of security and the message of resilience, and it was said that security is to eliminate the obstacles, and if we're talking about resilience is how to live with these obstacles. Do you agree with it?
No. let's say this is a huge stereotype, and not only here, it's global challenge over the world, that security means something with a power, with vertical things and so on. But open society, taking part the building security, especially soft side of security, who believing that the state is ready to react and help them if something happens. This way where to go. It means to turn security culture more open, more involving is something that I'm advising here and also at home. It means this is everywhere challenge.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you a lot. Dear colleagues, let's move forward. And I would like to pass the floor to Peter Haugeberg, the representative of NATO in Ukraine. But before this, I would like to quote something from communique in Vilnius in 2023 regarding the resilience we are talking about. The national collective resilience is a basic for the resilience and the main tasks of the alliances, and also vital for our efforts to protect our common values. And it also mentioned that resilience is a national responsibility and collective liability based on the Article 3 of the Washington Agreements, meaning that it's the strong basis which is uniting the participant of the allies. And before this, I would like to talk to you regarding your recommendations of the development of the security culture and how both in the country ally countries and also in Ukraine. What did we achieve together with you, and what should we work on? Thank you.
It's on? Yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction and the leading sort of into this as well. You touched on this being a national matter, and from a NATO point of view, we see this very much as a principle as well. This is something that we don't stipulate. This is the nations who are adopting these measures by themselves. We are happy to give guidelines. We are happy to share experiences from many different countries and collect the experiences and lessons learned and be a conduit for this, but it's very much a national matter. I do also take the point of Matti with trust, and I'll come back into this because I think it's very important. When I saw the headline here with security culture in time of war, I thought, wow, it seems like we have moved on to something different, and I'll come to that why I say this. Because I would rather talk about societal resilience than security culture. And I say that being from NATO. At the heart of this is what we do for citizens and the civil society. And I think it's really important that we get to there. Some factors to consider in this, and it underpins very much what Matti had mentioned before. Mindset, total defense, whole of government. It is something that is everybody that work together, be it on the civilian, military side, the various different institutions. We have had some very good examples from Finland and Sweden, who have been neutrals for many, many years, having to do things by themselves because of their geography, their history, and so forth. And lots of inspiration from that came there. Obviously, the stakeholders are government institutions, but also the private sector and the civil society. Many of those who provide services today are private sector. Much has been privatized, particularly when it comes to energy. And then there's the relationship. Citizens and government authorities, they are based on a commitment in democratic principles. You mentioned before the Washington Treaty and Article 3, and those democratic principles is exactly what the allies are believing in. And societal resilience is underpinned in those kind of beliefs as well. Then responsibility. It's not just government institutions. It's individuals, it's the citizens, it's institutions, it's the government. And citizens and civil society is very much a part of that. But they have to be allowed to be a part of that, and that's where we have to get to. At the very basic level, it's a lot of discussions that need to take place. What needs to be done by who, where, when, and how? It's the same type of questions that we ask ourselves in many different settings that we also have to ask when we are dealing with societal resilience, be it the preparedness, the response, and the recovery that you mentioned, the three different stages. So, and that ends up with something that is super important, and it leans to Marty's point about trust, and that's honesty. We need to identify what is missing and find solutions together. And if you don't have honesty in those discussions, you won't achieve those results. So in many ways, resilience is about a societal contract that needs to be fulfilled between all those that are part of this discussion. So from a NATO point of view, we have come a long way. We started out through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, very focused on civil emergency planning. To today, look at baseline requirements for broad preparedness and response across all sectors of society, so the whole of government point that was made before. And that includes civil-military cooperation. And what we have focused in on is what we call 7 baseline requirements. They lay the foundation. And it's continuity of government and critical services. It's resilient energy supply, ability to deal with uncontrolled movement of people, resilient food and water resources, ability to deal with mass casualties, resilient telecommunication systems, and resilient transport systems. We have found that those 7 areas lay the foundation for such a sectoral approach in whole of government. We have discussed that with Ukraine as well, and Ukraine actually went further than that. And they said, well, we think there is need for an 8th area, which is societal resilience. Because there was an understanding already at that point in time in 2001 when we discussed this with them, with Ukraine, that without the community, without the unity, without everything that is created by citizens and civil society, many of the other things fall apart. I think that's the lesson that we also found in COVID, many of us, the importance of civil society. We definitely did that. So moving and focusing a little bit more into citizens and civil society as fundamental actors in enhancing national resilience. There's various different things you could look at. Much of it is about informing, educating, and enabling citizens and societal groups to participate in discussions. And that's not always the case. The enablement is often very difficult. The access to the discussions, to the decision makers, and so forth. Citizens, they are partners, but they are also actors. If they're not actors, they can't be multipliers, and they can't enhance the response, so that's really important too. And then there is the trust between citizens and citizens' government, and that can only be based on communication, and as far as we're concerned, following democratic values in order to establish that trust. Citizens obviously also support defense, but here we need to understand what are the roles and responsibilities, where is cooperation, where is the need for awareness, and nations here are put up and structured in different ways, and this is very much a national choice on how you want to do this. But there has to be a dialogue about how to do it. You need to look at public information and education, and that is from preventive actions, mitigating effect, the fact that we have all the air alerts that we all hear these days, but also thinking about the reliability of information and where we get the information from and the channels. You know, is everything on Telegram the right information? Do we have to think a little bit about this and make a judgment ourselves in what we believe. And that's because of the mis and disinformation that we also need to deal with because of the social media and the environment that we face today. So to sum up, societal resilience really is the base for a broad dialogue that is together with citizens and civil society at its core. And resilience for the way that we see it is absolutely at all levels. So there is the ability to absorb, adapt, but also continue the basic functions of a government. And that, of course, is both during and especially in time of war. And all of that needs a high level of trust between citizens and institutions, and that's really one of the things that's super important to create. So I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. If you have a question, please. Yes, Dmitro.
By using NATO terminology, if I may, what do you think is the deterrence by denial somehow connected with resilience? I mean, would be correct to suggest a hypothesis that the more resilient is a country, then the better this deterrence by denial would work. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I even that the more resilient a country is in and across various different sectors and its ability to cooperate across, be it on the civil military side, but also among civilian institutions and with the private sector, you do have deterrence by denial. It's simply making it harder. I think in some ways Ukraine has proven that as well already now. And it's not always a question of resources. It's a question of understanding where you go in and do what at what point in time. And that's the dialogue I talk about. There has to be discussions beforehand, not while it's going on. It's always better before.
Якщо можна, у мене також до вас запитання.
If you don't mind, I also have the question. You and Matti, you are talking about the active involvement of civil society, about the horizontal context, about the partnership with business, for example, but there are very complex relations, especially on the local level between the local authorities and with various stakeholders. So in fact, we're talking about the networking. And from your perspective, from the perspective of NATO, how can we evaluate the efficiency of anti-crisis measures? 1 month ago, we were gathering here and we were discussing the assessment of the resilience. We had different opinions and we were even involved in inviting business and different organizations, and we were discussing about different indexes which help us to measure it. Do you consider that it's possible to measure these kind of relations? How can we see the efficiency of these actions considering the big number of participants, of the players, and especially during crisis period when we can see that there is a huge impact of stress, when the situation is very ambiguous, and how can we measure efficiency and how can we move forward with it?
Yes, I would like now jump from this huge philosophical thing down to real level and based on our experience during those exercises. It means in your question I felt one weak point. Resilience is not owned by state. Resilience is something for everything, and especially in community level, they can build resilience also without waiting orders from center. And this is something where is long way to go, but but we should do it. For example, just a small example, when in our exercise format we had platform like advisory group for the governor. And in several regions, first question was, do you have paper that it is legal? And this illustrating, what I said previously. It means how to change resilience and also security culture from plan-based logic to the problem-solving based logic. We have problem, we have to solve. There is no need to wait right answer from somewhere. We can gather together and we're discussing and we're trying to solve this problem together. We have really good experts in professional level, in the SNS, in police. They will be involved, but we have to discuss it together with different sectors in community level. Then it much more efficient. But for that, we have to train, we have to come together, discuss together. Because if people just coming together and starting to talk, this is a group of people. You have to train it to become a team. And when you have a team in community level, then it's long step forward to build up real resilience, what will stay. Thank you.
I have a slightly different take on your question. Indexes, algorithms, criteria, it's always difficult to get agreement about those. Which one is more important than the other one? And it depends on your perspective and where you see things from. So I think it's better to turn it upside down and then ask yourself, what do you want to achieve? What are the functions and services that you want to continue having? And then you build an exercise around that, making sure that all the participants are all those who have a stake in this. And you let a scenario play out, and you see how it goes. And you have independent observers. You may have a red team that stress tests the responders. And then collectively, you gather the lessons afterwards. And if you do that and you focus in on what went wrong and what didn't work and what worked, the facts, rather than judgment and opinions, there's a lot of learning that comes out of that. So I would rather focus on those aspects than a discussion about indexes, algorithms, and criteria, etc. Because a lot of it comes from the discussion with all the stakeholders who are there.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to jump in at this point. I'm ready to jump across the table and start a discussion until midnight here. It is so important to bring citizens in, from a very basic level, into the whole process of building what we call an emergency management community. In America, most of this came about since our 9/11, when we were attacked. And we realized the importance of every individual being aware of the security needs of the country and how to respond if that attack should come to them. There was a whole plane load of people, just average people, that had to decide. They knew they were about to die, but they had to decide, were they going to allow that plane to be taken into, I think it was the White House or the Capitol building, or were they going to try to bring it down? And they did, in a vacant field, so no one else died. We're in a similar situation here. And I've been following the news ever since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, especially among the people in the more rural areas. These are the ones that I really developed a heart for, because in some cases I could see an extraordinary amount of coming together, which it looked like they never had before, of individuals that would step up and make a decision, of a village, I think it was out in Kharkiv Oblast, where they decided to put road obstacles in the road so the Russians couldn't come in. And then all the people went into hiding so they couldn't find any people. It spared their village what so many others went through. These are lessons. These are instructional items that we have to get down to those individual levels, to the smallest of villages. When I worked in Tajikistan, there was a conference put on by a group called the Agahan Foundation. It's extremely large around the world. They were working in partnership with a very difficult government to bring this kind of training to every single village in Tajikistan, many of whom just operated very isolated, had no trust of the government, had no connection to like medical resources, and seeing how they put together a plan which actually was based on one I wanted to talk about later, something called the CERT plan, C-E-R-T. It's an acronym that we use in America for any citizen that wants to become involved. It's a citizen emergency response team. I see a head shaking here, wonderful. And this is being played out in other countries around the world where they're given instructions. If a community, a small town, wants to set up a CERT team, the federal government will supply all the money and resources necessary to train them and to bring them into direct communication with emergency services, not just in their town, but in outside areas. For medical services, they actually have the direct contacts to call 24/7 for police if they need it. There can often be an incident where that village is isolated. We certainly saw that at the beginning of the invasion. They had no communication with anyone outside the village. So what do they do in the meantime? There are very specific guidelines set up. The training is all free to anybody who wants to be a part of it. You get the hard hat and everything to go with it, safety jacket. So this is a big thing. They want to get involved. And I saw that in Tajikistan, which I never thought I'd see in villages in that country. More so than here, villages tend to be very insular. They believe they can handle all their things. Thank you, government, we don't need you. We can take care of this. And I've run into that so much. It's taken over 2 years to really get buy-in with villages on this resilient village plan. And it's been building relationships, and that is so much of the key of what we need to be doing. We have to respect them where they are. We have to hear what they feel their needs are, and not just, bring them guidance from above. And I think I better stop at that point, or I'll be doing my whole speech here at this. But thank you so much for bringing these points up. It's so critical.
Thank you very much. Дякую, колеги.
Thank you, dear colleagues. We will fasten a bit, and I would like to pass the floor to Dmytro Teperuk, a leading expert on public resilience, Director General of the NGO Resilient Ukraine, who is developing this sphere for more than 8 years, both in Ukraine and Estonia. And we have fundamental researches and many other things. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Andriy. Thank you, everyone.
Of small evolution from defense into resilience, because I started my professional career by working at the Estonian Ministry of Defense for 8 years, and then I joined a security think tank, and then we with our team started a program, Resilient Ukraine, and then discovered, studied, researched, and implemented many standards of resilience here in Ukraine's regions. So basically, I understand sometimes there might be seen contradictions between, resilience, security, and defense. And for me, actually, security culture is kind of integral component of resilience mindset. And by that, I mean it's basically combines a range of different skills, practical knowledge, but also attitudes. And it means that it could be cultivated, it could be trained, and it could be enhanced. So you just need proper tools for that. I just would like to highlight one tool which, in my opinion, is particularly important for resilience mindset or security culture is actually capacity of foresight, which enables us to evaluate and to assess both also known and predictable risks, but also facilitate kind of expansion of thinking horizon regarding the potential future threats. And this foresight tool is based on multitude of different scenarios, future scenarios, and could be employed within specific instruments and tools like crisis exercises to engage different communities at different levels, local level, regional level, but also national level. So let me just present you very briefly our own experience, already mentioned here several times that our team at Resilient Ukraine conducted a series of cross-sectoral scenario-based crisis exercises in the 8 regions of Ukraine, various regions of Ukraine, and actually these events, they were quite multidisciplinary by their nature, which means that we engaged not just, let's say, regular suspects and regular stakeholders of resilience already mentioned here, obviously the law enforcement agencies, emergency services, the military, local and regional administrations, but also the media, local media, also opinion leaders and representatives of civil society and NGOs in their respective regions, but also teachers from schools or from universities, so educational sector was there, and also private businesses. It wasn't an easy task to invite all of them for a 2-3 day training event, which was again based on future threats scenarios. So they basically had to play. So our experience showed that first day they spent basically arguing about established protocols and algorithms. But then we created a kind of work atmosphere for them to be, let's say, more creative and more innovative, as Matti already mentioned, to focus not on the existing protocols and algorithms, but finding solutions for the problems specified in the scenarios, but also trying to expand the thinking about future threats. Because again, speaking about with the military terms, you know, military servicemen often, not sometimes, but often they are preparing for the past wars. And again, a resilient mindset would think about other threats in the future. So what we learned, a lot actually. So the participants demonstrated basically variety of attitudes and skills and knowledge and the views and experience of security cultures. And I mean security cultures in plural because obviously security culture of, let's say, emergency services and police is something different from understanding of security and safety and resilience, let's say, of journalism. Not to mention, let's say, local businessmen or opinion leaders in some hromadas or some regions. So we tested our methodology, we tested the tools, and proven that that kind of simulation exercises can facilitate synchronization of risk assessment requirements between different sectors, and also can enhance the comprehension of threat foresight. Again, to highlight that threat foresight is an essential component of resilience mindset. So we think that that could enhance this kind of comprehensive, as Matti again mentioned, whole society approach to emergency response and disaster management during wartime. And so I would, of course, advocate that this effective model of crisis training also could optimize cross-sectoral cooperation, again, to involve citizens and non-governmental organizations, media, and other resilience stakeholders across Ukrainian communities, because resilience is built from grassroots, so bottom to the top. And obviously, our organization is open to continue this fruitful cooperation and collaboration with all partners in Ukraine at the national level, but also at the regional and local level, to share that experience. And I fully agree with Martin and other colleagues that Ukraine is now advancing actually more than other NATO allies in that, so we have actually to catch up and to conceptualize all the experience we have here into our national systems. Thank you.
Будь ласка.
Just small thing to add about different thing in resilience. We all, especially uniformed people, we know very well command and control philosophy, and if crisis situation, then of course this works. But in resilient field, it's not. And there is other system like coordination, and coordination in specific meaning. It means you have to coordinate a platform where all players can go around the table to come and discuss and start to plan how the problem can be solved. And to build up those platforms, this is something new, because it is a bit against our understanding how we can solve crisis situations. But this is something new, and this is work. And also for service people here, the new thing is to have more role as advisor, as experts. We have huge knowledge, but the role as advisor, not as commander, is also what has to be integrated into this resilience concept, and especially society resilience. Thank you.
Будь ласка.
If I may just tag along after that, I've heard a lot of concepts brought up here that we use in the incident command system in America, and just a few thoughts on how maybe there are a few differences that might help. You talk about command and control and the issues with that. Totally agree on it. And there needs to be more of a coordination, a cooperation between very disparate, very different entities that are involved. One of the concepts we have is unified command. When you have an incident, a disaster that involves, say there was a derailment, a railroad train might have derailed. Well, it turns out it had some very volatile gases on board. You'd have to bring somebody in from the energy sector. So they might have a particular role in this. If it's something involving a national crime, our FBI would be involved. All of these people are real, type A's. They're going to take control. So there is a very definite structure set up under what's called unified command for the role of each of those people. I'd really like the chance to share at some time just some of the basics of the incident command system. It's a very adaptable structure, very modular. It can be scaled up to very big crisis. It can be used for just a simple house fire for the fire department emergency services. And it is followed by just about every entity in America now that might be involved. There's a role for, I used to be American Red Cross, so there was a role for us. We had, I don't know if you have like EOCs, this would be a command center when a disaster is ongoing. There would be representatives from all sectors involved that would be in that one room, and following everything going on, and the top level decisions would be made there in a unified fashion by all those players. And this command system even goes down as low as the CERT people I was talking about, and what level those people at individual villages might play.
Колеги, хотів би сказати, що ця концепція симуляційних навчань, про які
The concept of the simulation exercises which Mati was talking about, that is a unique technology, and therefore after this meeting you can consult with Mati and with Metro. He's also the member of the board of Resilient Ukraine, and Metro is one of the developers of these exercises, and please you can advise on something if you need this kind of organization in Gramada or these kind of exercises in Gramada. They will be glad to help you to understand how you can develop the scenario and to make the exercises at most efficient. Considering the fact that we are in the middle of our meeting, we would like to continue communication after the end of this meeting, and we will try to make the lessons learned after this meeting and the conclusions, but we would like to continue this communication together with you, because I would like to remind you that the aim of this meeting is to help, first of all, to help people to get ready for this difficult period, and second of all, to help the government to prepare the solid, proper documents for resilience. So let's keep in touch with all of you. So now I would like, considering the fact that soon we will have the 2nd of September and the children will go to school, and I would like to pass the floor to Ivana Boyakivska, acting head of the Educational Security Service Organization Union of the Patrol Police Department. Please, the floor is yours. 7 minutes. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for paying so much attention to these so important issues, and you are creating this platform for cooperation, and it is so important in these times, because starting from the partnership, we can continue developing strategies, and everyone from their area of responsibility can help to overcome the challenges being prepared, because partnership is the grounds for good results, and also the trust of organizations and between the organizations. So I would like to mention that resilience is, for us, it is important to understand that it's flexibility, because the thing which is resilient but solid under the pressure will break down, and when it's flexible, it is able to adjust, and it will find the ways to protect itself, and therefore we have to look for the alternative. So we have to look for the new options to provide the safety and security for the people in need. And actually all the Ukrainians are people in need due to war, but the most vulnerable people are children, and therefore we have to do our best, and to, according to the documents approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, by the Police of Ukraine and the Minister of Education, we're implementing this project of the educational security. The main objective of the service of the educational security is providing the sufficient level of security, and identifying the components which are the reasons for the threats to appear in the schools, and to identify them, to respond them, and to eliminate the consequences for children and to the educational sphere. And therefore we have the department. In the department of the Patrol Police, in 17 Patrol Police departments and 20 sectors in the main departments of the National Police. And also we have positions of the inspectors of education that are the current police officers who with experience who went through special trainings and additional trainings, and since September are going to serve in educational facilities in that are 339 officers, and by the end of the year we are planning to increase this number to provide safety and security and the culture of security in more educational facilities. I would like to clarify the main functions of the officers. There are three basic functions: law enforcement, educational, and mentorship. Officers who are going to work in educational facilities, so they are going to be appointed to these facilities and they're going to serve at these facilities. They're going to cooperate with them. With the facilities, they will have the partnership in the educating us facilities with the administration, with parents, and with the students who are studying in this facility. Police officers who are going to serve in the schools, they are going to identify the violations and they are going to eliminate it, because police officers are preventing these kinds of violations, and of course they are going to coordinate the entrance for no dangerous people to enter school, or like not for any threats to be able to get to the territory of the facility. Educational functions means that they are going to educate and to make the preventive education, because we understand that security is not something that comes from the enemy only, that is not just military safety and security. It also means that children have to be aware, they have to know how they can protect themselves from negative impacts, and therefore we will have interactive lessons, prevention discussions, different activities to prevent bullying, smoking, drug abuse, to form national patriotic mindset and awareness of young generation. And it's very important, because it is important for us not just to prevent negative aspects which already exist in our society, but it's important for us to form the culture of the state in the way that we will have less of these negative aspects, for the people to understand how they should act, how they should behave, not to get in trouble, and to be able to help the others if something bad happens. And of course, another important function is mentorship, because we understand that police officer who is going to serve in this school, he is going to be the example for the children. He has to be the person who will motivate the children to be active, to take sports, to follow, not to abide the laws. And we consider that in this complex way approach, we will be able to have an impact on the future development of the society and the safe environment, because without parents in this process we will not achieve our best results. And therefore we are also focused on parents community. We are planning to have partnership with them and together with them to decide some local problems or to think how to prevent some sort of negative aspects. And of course, we are going to work with cybersecurity, and we are going to think on how we can help the children to raise awareness about cybersecurity, because the threats are also on the internet as well. And therefore, it's important to know the threats for the children, for them to be completely protected, both physically, mentally, and in cyber world. So we also understand that we have to engage other partners who can be engaged, and altogether we can achieve our results. And of course, there is this and State Security Service, there is Family Social Service, there are NGOs which can partake and help us work with the tendencies we observe, and altogether we will gain our objectives. We understand that it's just one of the steps we have to undertake to create the complex, safe environment. But without this step, it will be very hard. So we need your support and understanding how important it is and how relevant it is. And we are planning to create this platform, not only this educational platform and not only during the martial law, but to provide the stable, safe environment, and even after the martial law, when everything will be fine and the Russian aggression will not be a threat for our children. Thank you. I have just one question. Did you analyze lessons learned of the previous years, and what vulnerabilities, what weak points do you see this year? Yes, of course, we have analyzed the pilot project which was implemented, and it was pilot for half a year. And of course, experience of the other countries, the international experience, and we have analyzed and identified the positive tendencies. The children are contacting police officers, and at the place where we had police officers, we noticed less negative tendencies like smoking, bullying, and the other negative aspects in school community. So we have analyzed it, we take into account the mistakes we've made, and we thought on how can we provide participation of each police officer in school. And we had a very good preparation. For half a month, the selected police officers had trainings, and then they have the practical trainings, and they were learning the first 8 measures and critical cases, and also the threats that can happen. All of these things were taken into account, and the preparation of the experts was conducted. So now I'm not able to pass the floor to Vladislav Vapnyuk, the representative, the specialist of the Department for the Ensuring Preventive Measures of the Department for Ensuring the Operational and Rescue Service of Civil Protection of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. So what kind of experience did you take into account, and what measures have you undertaken? Yes, just in a few days, the new year starts, and the provision of the safety and security of the educational process is one of the priorities for the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Moreover, it is in the legislation of Ukraine, and the Convention of the UN on Children. It declares the protection of children, but the reality and also the full-scale war and the catastrophe in the climate shifts show us that the children are the most vulnerable in all of these situations. Speaking of the preparation for the new year, we have planned more than 10,000 events, and according to the Article 33, all of these measures were put on pause, but we have conducted 68 out of plan extra measures, and we have conducted 21,450 observations. So before the multi-subject test and also before the new education year. And as for the analysis, this year we have identified more 129,000 violations in the educational facility, and out of them 66 are those which were not fulfilled according to the previous recommendations. So if it's possible, before the new year starts, the educational facilities will get the information that they have to mitigate the violations, which can become the threat for health and life of students. And speaking of the safety and security aspect, it's not only about the fire mitigation measures, and as my colleagues said from the National Police, we are conducting the events which are explanatory meetings for the children, where we explain the safety and security of children at school and out of school. And we have security classrooms, mobile security classrooms. We do understand that considering the martial law, and there are Hromada communities where it is impossible to equip these kind of classrooms, and therefore we have 15 mobile classrooms, 5 under DSNS, and 10 after the National Police. And we have the schedule where these or other vehicle goes to Hromadas, and we're conducting lessons with multimedia. And considering the age, we are teaching the children how to provide medical aid, the fire security. We are talking about bullying and cybersecurity and other things. So speaking of the cooperation, besides what I've mentioned, thanks to UNICEF, we have the security projects and the security classrooms, and with the Red Cross in Ukraine, we are organizing the medical lessons, and the children get the certificates, and what is even more important, they get the knowledge. So the State Emergency Situation Service urges to undertake the most measures to mitigate the threats. Thank you, and I'm passing the floor to Oleg Grikun, Chief Specialist of the Department of Engineering and Technical Measures and Protective Structures of the Department for the Protection of the Population and Territories of the Department of the Organization of Civil Protection Measures of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. So I would like to add a bit. I would like to support, I agree with my colleagues on the resilience of Hromadas. Resilience of Hromada is equal to resilience of the state. If Hromadas are resilient, the state is resilient. And of course, it depends on many aspects. So the common work, the joint work, and many other things. And as for the participants of the educational process, so what I would like to add here, yes, since 2023, according to the decision of the government, and so far during 2024, we have the quarter inspections, whether they have the shelters, and how they can continue their work during the air raid alerts. And also I would like to emphasize that so far we have more than 61,000 objects of the of the buildings protected. And as for the educational facilities, most of the facilities developed the shelters in their basements, and these numbers are against these shelters are against the code of security code, because according to the code we have to the educational process has to be continued in the special shelters, special equipped shelters, and more than 1,800 facilities are not are continuing the educational process on the first floors, and that is also nonsense, because 2 years ago it was possible, but the war is ongoing, and every month, every day, we can see the new means, and we are making the amends to the legislation. The amends to the legislation are made, but the society is not able to continue their work with these amends, and they cannot prepare the proper shelters. And the Ministry of Education has suggested to develop some recommendations, and these recommendations were developed and approved by the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers on the safe spaces on the first floors. It was adopted recently. On the 13th of August, the decree 26, the experimental project, and the SNS, the State Emergency Situation Service, was partaken, and we were providing the recommendations together with the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Defense, and the others. And we have made the decision in the facilities which are in the green and yellow zone to equip the first floors with habions, and to equip them in the other ways for the children to be able to continue education not online but offline. That's a brief information from my side. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Yes, I would like to ask you one question. So you say that the enemy is using the new means of war, and so, for example, during the exercises, Mati, when he was the mentor for the participants, he was saying that every crisis is unique. And we understand that in each department we have protocols. The director of the school has protocol, the state emergency situation has its protocol, but nevertheless, what should we do when the situation is changing dynamically, when every attack can be different from the previous one? How it is better to prepare yourselves better? How maybe we can have some special exercises, or maybe how we can prepare the teacher, the student, the parents to the fact that the situation can be difficult, different all the time. So the representatives of the SNS and the National Police of Ukraine, they are providing, clarifying the clarification on these matters, and in the security classrooms, we also have the air raid alert exercises for the children not to be afraid of the basements, because it's also nonsense. Everyone has children, everyone has grandchildren, and when you say that someone goes to the basement, the children do not understand that. So you have to explain it somehow. You have to work on these. The teachers have to be able to explain that also, that you need to do these kind of things. For example, Ivano-Frankivska Oblast, so we have 300 facilities, and we are on the first floor, everything's fine, and nothing is going to happen. No, it happens everywhere. And even the example, it's not about military actions. So far, at the moment, the State Commission on the Emergency Situations is having the meeting on the Sna River, which is the part of Dnipro, and there is a complex work. We have the complex work of the ministries involving Hromada communities, and here we have a resilience component. We're working on the resilience of Hromadas which are along this river, and it's up to the level of the state, and it's going to be adopted on allocating the funds and so on and so forth. So no shellings needed, just ecological catastrophe, and our society will suffer from it. If you don't mind, I will add a bit that during the inspections, we are working also with the teachers, and it doesn't mean that the inspector is talking only about shellings. Even in the normal days, we have the chemical radiational threats, and it's not always. It's not. We can talk about not only nuclear weapon, but we can talk about the emergency situations on the plants producing weapons. So it can be not typical for this area, but the knowledge, more or less average, has to be provided to both children and parents. Thank you very much. And you also said about Harmadas, and I would like to remind that subsidiary is one of the key principles of the resilience concept. So the crisis has to be resolved on the grassroots level with the good national coordination. Dear colleagues, we are moving to the energy sector. Yes, Matti.
I have a question both the police and the SNS. You both have trainings in schools and lessons. Did you have discussion between yourselves to unite it and to have in schools one safety and security lesson, or how to be a good citizen, for example? I know we in Estonia have a decades this discussion, but still there is no agreement who has a better position, police or rescue service. How you have here this situation? Is it possible to have it in one? It's going to be much more easy also for schools, from my Estonian experience.
Дякую за запитання.
Thank you for the question. When I was saying that we have security projects, that is security classroom, and these classrooms, together with the police officers, we have one lesson, but we cover a few questions, and after this, a child is able to understand what is cyberbullying, what is bullying, what is cyber security, how to use gas protection masks. So we are using comprehensive approach, and it helps to increase the level of awareness of the children.
School program, or it is additional training additionally for official school program? Those lessons, are they part of the school program?
A part of these questions are studying during the special normal lessons from the official school program, but the deeper understanding of this topic can be provided by the specialists who are working with this issue. So I wouldn't say that it's the school program, that is expansion rule for life. So maybe one will not use these rules in their life, but nevertheless, they have to know that. Let me add a bit that these kind of events can be organized in the framework of the program of the educating events of the school, maybe weeks of safety and security, and in the partnership we have an agreement, and we are planning these kind of events, and we are implementing them. Thank you, dear colleagues. So let's move forward, and now I would like to pass the floor to Yevhen Trishuk, the officer of the civil security from the Armed Forces of Ukraine. From your perspective, what do we lack? What do we lack in Harmadas before the autumn-winter period? Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm very glad to be the part of this event. Thank you for the organizers for inviting me. I'm not the energy expert, to be honest, but I have an experience, technical experience, considering my military background. Let's consider Sumska Oblast, and actually we can compare it to Khersonska Oblast. The main energy problem is the power supply. Power supply gives us access to communication, and that is a deeper understanding of resilience. And speaking of this period, that is preparation for the heating period. For Sumska Oblast, they have forests that they can find solid fuel. And if we compare it with Khersonska Oblast, these processes will be harder, and it was harder there in Khersonska Oblast. We have lots of humanitarian organization which provide address support assistance to the people. We have the state subventions, and in this way Armadas are trying to cover this energy component, and therefore I consider it as a baseline. So let's consider then the electrification and electricity. If we consider the territories which are close to the gray zone or the borderline, in this case there should be generators with the fuel. Generators will provide you with access to the connections, and the local social networks, and these generators are needed for the water supply, the places where the water supply is centralized. That is the lessons learned, and I think that there is nothing new here. And also, what I would like to mention regarding the resilience, what we've heard, all of us know there are 7 resiliences according to NATO, but considering the experience of Armadas, I would like to draw your attention. It is not taken into account, but nevertheless, maybe we have to consider the economical resilience of Armadas. And during occupation, it can turn into the food resilience, because Armadas under occupation, they were able to self-provide with food to the people in their Armadas. And speaking of the gray zone, I agree with Ms. Leslie Wilson on the small civilian networks, which are becoming the priorities here. We have the key leaders. It's not always the head of the village, but that can be just an active person. But lots of things depend on this person, and this person can establish this kind of resiliences, food, medical resilience. And in this area, in the gray zone, the local networks, I would have considered as one type of resilience, that is conceptual. The resilience of the society from the perspective of how people treat the armed forces of Ukraine, the activities of the armed forces of Ukraine can, if they're present on the territory, they can become this threat because they are the object to the attacks. And also the resilience is also, we have to consider the information, because if there is no electricity, there is no access to the information. We have practical experience, and we do understand that the local communities which are in the gray zone, that are elderly people, they have nowhere to go, or they have their own understanding, vision that they have to stay there, and their security is just the matter of their choice. And without the proper informational access, we can use printed informational booklets, and the armed forces of Ukraine, the national police, and the SNS can use it, because elderly people like reading. Or we can use radio, but it is more difficult because there is the counter-ring between to Ukraine and the Russian Federation in here, and the medical. So speaking of the minimum resilience, that is something Armadas should know, and that will increase their chances to survive. And finishing, I would like to say that the borrowed experience has to be adopted. And if you will have the questions, please, I will be very glad to talk to you. Thank you, Yevhen, and also invite the people for the communication with Yevhen after the discussion. And I would like to pass the floor to Roman Zinchenko. He has a strategic vision on the one hand in this aspect, and on the other hand, he can talk about the communicational aspects related to energy sphere. That is something we were emphasizing on about the informational impacts. Andrei, thank you very much for the invitation. That is a big honor for me to be in this round of experts. I will not be able to cover it methodologically, but I'm ready to share what we already understood. I'm the head of the NGO Greencubator, and in the normal life, we are working with green agro startups, and we are talking about decentralized energy for the last decades, and during the last 2 years everyone is talking about them, and that is a very relevant topic for us. And another component is that we are growing energy cooperatives in Gramada communities. That is a way of the common joint investment in Gramadas to create the energy resilience, invincibility point. And in Slavutich town, where we have established Sonishna Misa cooperative during the short-term occupation, this station was the source to charge your phones and to be in touch. And fortunately, after the full-scale war, the donor has suspended financing, but I hope we will be able to continue it. Technically, we belong to civil society. We are NGO, and but we are very pro-business NGO. But in addition to that, I'm the part of the non-formal community, which we call energy managers. There are those people who do not lose the internet and do not lose energy supply, and I guess that the Russian Federation will continue their attacks. And talking to the people who started investing in their energy, self-support and subsidiarity is a wonderful word. I can say that the work the organization of the multi-story buildings, which have invested in the generators for everything to work in the building. That is the community of the energy resilient people. And on the other hand, when we are talking about the security culture, about the culture of resilience and self-support and subsidiarity, I can say that we have very strong component, and that is paternalism and the mindset which was set in the Soviet times, that someone will do something for us. And actually, for the security culture, we do not have to wait for someone to make things better for us, but we have to modulate the scenarios to understand how bad everything can turn and what should we get prepared for. And that is one of the skills which not everyone has, and I have to be honest with you about that. I didn't have the emergence of the backpack. We just went to my friends to Lviv, and then it appeared to be that we have to stay in Lviv for a bit longer time. So the culture of safety and security in Ukraine has to go through the adulthood communication, through the communication in the adult community, and to explain that society is actually something that is not very strong. The energy threats which occur, the lack of energy supply, they generate the whole new range of the stretch which Ukrainians have never thought about before, because the weakness of the society is not only about whether my Wi-Fi router works, whether my fridge works. Also, after this, we have sanitary threat. My brother lives on the 24th floor. On the 24th floor, during the blackouts, there is no water. So when I'm calling him, he says like, "Oh, I'm going to the gym and to have the shower." The food security. When the temperature in my fridge was 11 Celsius after the blackouts, I was very surprised. And the day before yesterday, I brought my wife and children. I brought from expensive supermarket for 4 packs of ice cream. When we opened them, all of them have melted down. And that is not the worst supermarket in Kyiv, but it means that it has an impact on the refrigerators in the supermarkets, and therefore the market, the sanitary and the food aspects are becoming the threat which Ukrainian society will have to overcome for quite a long time. Another big challenge is the challenge of connection. That is what Mr. Vodosov has already mentioned. The challenge is very severe at the moment because recently, I guess you've noticed that Ukrainian mobile networks became not mobile networks, but telephone networks. So the main Telegram channel, the main communication channels for me are Signal and sometimes Facebook Messenger. And when I'm moving around Kyiv, I almost have no connection. My parents cannot call me from their village. They do not have mobile network coverage, but they have good internet connection, but they cannot call me. So the task for those who are in the civil sector but have to provide yourself with connections, you have to go over the horizons of the traditional means of communication, which rely on the traditional networks, because we as society have to be ready to the situation that there will be no connection at all. For example, my friends which have the OSCE in the multi-story building, they bought a pair of fangs. They have the repeater, and as far as I know, the police was using that, and they have shared the signal. They have provided them with these walkie-talkies, because at the day when there will be no connection, these days can happen. Now I'm bringing to my home the third optical wire internet, and I'm upset that we do not have the wire telephones, and we have to grow to raise the mindset. And the good multi-story organization in the building can be a good example. On the other hand, we can understand that quite often we have some certain situations when the innovations go beyond the legislation framework. Not everything is in the regulatory documents, and these regulational documents are limiting the progress. On the other hand, what I would like to draw your attention to, mainly on the tools, on the security tools, that is the preparation of the specialists in security sector. For me, at some certain point, it was very traumatic to watch the US video from the US, where 2 specialists with the hydraulic scissors were cutting the new Tesla for the American firefighters to understand how to fight the fire and what you should switch off to fight lithium on fire. Do we teach our firefighters in this way? Do we teach them how to how to fight the fire from the lithium fires. We have a very big shift when we shifted to boilers, and there is a big threat related to the generators uses. And in this case, resilience for me is the capacity of ramadas. So we had the examples of supported ramadas and how they can support themselves, and because the neighborhood ramada is a good index, because we can knock the doors to each other. And on the other hand, where the populism is the threat nowadays, because on the one hand we have to change the regulatory framework, and we have nothing in our legislation saying that everyone has to have the power stations. And nevertheless, Ukraine has imported 1.5 gigawatts, and I think that we will come close to 2 gigawatts, and it will happen somewhere, but it will happen also in the households. And the big challenge which I see when it comes to the water supply, well, in fact, we have very populistic staffs made by the Ukrainian politicians. They are creating the challenges that Ukrainian water supply companies will be able to provide themselves with fuel. Because when we are decreasing the price for the water, it makes these companies get exhausted, and they have no resources for the backup. And for many other things. And therefore, we have lots of tasks, and one of the big tasks in this sphere is to educate our society to be self-sufficient, and to forget about the talks that everything will be resolved, we will have gigawatts of power, and we will have electricity all the time. We have to teach Ukrainians to get ready for scenarios when we have 2 hours of energy per day. In this context, we have to think not only about the middle class, which can afford a few $1,000 spent on the inverter and the battery, but also we have to think of the for the solutions for the low-income people, for their fridges to work. And we have the possibilities in this area, but we have to move forward to democratize it, and in this way we will make decentralized organization. Thank you very much, Roman. And I would like to say that you have covered a few very important issues, and unfortunately now we didn't have much time to discuss everything, but I think that we can organize a separate event dedicated to energy and to horizontal contacts, and the role of OSBB multi-story building organization. And it was quite often said that OSBB is the point of invincibility due to different reasons. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. We have not much time left, and therefore we need to fast up. And I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Roxana Nestorenko, Research Manager of the Center for Sociological Research, Decentralization and Regional Development, Kyiv School of Economics. Thank you very much. In the beginning of our roundtable, we're saying how can we measure resilience and what is it? And the centers like ours, Analytical Center, think tanks, they work to understand what kind of phenomenon is this and how Ramadas conceptualize it on the size, and how can we measure it better. And we had a range of researches, and you can find them on our website. Starting from 2022, we work on this issue, and our analyticians are trying to understand the types of the challenges Ramadas are facing in the administrational processes. And I can say briefly what did we pay attention to and what Ramadas should pay attention to. First of all, that is strategical response plan. That is something that was mentioned about flexibility, about the constant analysis, and what are the threats, what kind of threats do we have for our Ramadas, and who should we network with to resolve different problems. So that is going from analysis to the preparation. And of course, so we have to understand that our situation is changing all the time, especially to the frontline territory, for the frontline territories, and they need additional support, that is like the experts who can help them, about external specialists that are NGOs and volunteers and the local activists. So we need the support to develop different plans. And the second line is communications. And in this case, we are talking about the experiments of communication of the local authorities after the full-scale war. And we can talk about how efficient this communication was between the people when people were communicating through the heads of the villages, starostas. People didn't know what was happening, but from my experience of communication with people were riding on a bike around. They were talking to the people to understand what is happening, to understand what are the needs, and to pass it further, and to explain what one can do in this situation. And the third point is the coordination of the effort. That is what our colleagues already mentioned about networking with other promoters, and also about the efficient management. And speaking of our second research, I will talk briefly about it. And I really like the fact that, in fact, it correlates with many statements today. For example, the statement on and about the accessibility of the shelters, what the representatives, the facilities are the most vulnerable in this case. And actually for Hromada community, that is a huge challenge, especially for the affected Hromadas, where to find it's not going to be the first, it shouldn't be the first floor, that it should not be too well, that it should be a secured shelter. And sometimes you cannot do nothing, and you have underground waters, and you have to look for the ways how to place, where to find the place for these children. Typically, there are the old buildings, buildings which you can adjust. There is a huge number of the requests to the local authorities, which they are not always able to manage both financially and with personnel. What do OMSs do in this case? They communicate with international organizations. They are requesting grants. They are looking for the outer grants, especially for Hromadas which were affected. So the entities which were paying the biggest taxes there, they are not able to provide the security on the level which the big settlements can do that. And therefore, concluding the results of our researches. I'm very sorry. Can you say where can we find your researches? Can you mention that? Yes, that is on the website of the Kyiv School of Economics. There is on the tab of the research of the Center of Sociological Research, Decentralization and Regional Development. So, concluding, I would like to say that there is also a big need for we have we have to test the IT systems of Hromadas, the backup, especially if there are the strikes in the local authorities building. And the last thing I would like to say, among the Hromadas we were researchers, the biggest ones are the Chernihivska and Sumska Oblast. They are the settlements are isolated, and in addition to that, there is the occupation, and it's a very important aspect we have to pay attention to. Thank you very much, Ms. Roxolana. I think that we definitely will use the opportunity. And as for the researchers, I think that for the resilient country and for the conceptualization of this direction, I think they are very important. And I'm very glad to pass the floor to Leslie Wilson. I was told that we can ask how it is better to introduce you. Maybe you can do that. How can we, what can we say about what you're doing at the moment?
У нас просто
In fact, we do not have that much time. If possible, 5 minutes.
The main point I wanted to mention relates to my background now here in Ukraine. I guess by default, I'm a one-person NGO, civil society organization, have been for 2 years. But Brave Foundation, Brave to Rebuild, many of you know them by, have adopted me, the Resilient Village Project, and I will be forever grateful for that. It is finally getting up and off the ground, and that brings up a couple of the really difficult points for any of these NGOs, the new ones especially, that started up after the full-scale invasion. These are small shoestring operations. They don't have all the pieces in place that, Red Cross and all these other groups have had and developed over the years. They need help. They need to be gathered together. They need to form alliances. In America, we have what's called VOAD, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. Every organization of every size is part of that to some extent. Maybe someone can tell me, do we have anything like that here? But these organizations need to be plugged in, and they need to be plugged in fast. What we're developing right now with Resilient Village through Brave Foundation is a heating system based on the rocket mass heating, but the research and development that's gone on in the last 10 years is phenomenal. I'm working with one of the founders of these initiatives. And we are developing the prototype, which hopefully will be done next week out in Hostomel. And we got to get that word out fast. But we've run into so many obstacles because we don't have permission from the government or powers that be to bring in war debris. All of what we're doing is based mainly on recycling war debris, but we only have so much at any one place. We need government buy-in. We need media buy-in. We need other organizations like yours. And it's not just Brave Foundation, but several others we've just started to connect with. We need help. And I'm just going to end on that note. Unless you want anything else, you can ask questions now.
Чи є запитання? Так чи
So anyways, we will be able to communicate after the end of this meeting. Thank you very much. Please. I would like to say that Ms. Leslie mentioned the most important problem we have, the access of the organizations which have resources to the territories where these resources needed and proper coordination. I'm not talking about myself in this case, but typically at the places where humanitarian headquarters are established, there is a question who is going to be the main there and who is going to decide on everything. And I think that territories are different, the communities are different, and each case is individual. Unfortunately, there is no unique model, no single model, but we are working on this. Thank you. And now I'm very glad to pass the floor to Anastasia Petek, the lawyer and cybersecurity expert, co-founder and chairman of the board of NGO MinsMin. Ms. Anastasia works for a long time with Resilient Ukraine, and I think that all the sectors which are presented here, they are working with cybersecurity. And I think that you definitely had the comments on different statements you heard today. And I will be very glad to pass you the floor. But at the same time, up to 5 minutes, please. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for the word. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who is present here. Speaking of the cybersecurity and my way in cybersphere, I would like to say that for 12 years I work in cybersecurity, and I had experience both in state authorities, in National Police of Ukraine, in business, and NGOs. And the security culture was quite weak. Small example. All of us we're meeting we saw different policies of security. If it's a state authority, if it's business, so we have a register, and nobody knows why we are standing there. So I wondered what we are writing about. And then when I started studying what is written in these policies and whether there is something there about cybersecurity, the level of the instructions was like, if your computer freezes, just restart it. And it was a long time ago. And when we started to work with Ramada, so around Ukraine, and we studied the policies, for example, what is written there and how people work with it, how it is protected. Typically, it was almost like this way. And when I worked in the law enforcement, it was surprising for me that nobody has explained what kind of information is better to keep in on the phone and what kind of information is better not to keep on your phone. That is a big disadvantage, and something changed, something not. But later, when we are talking about the cyber awareness, cyber literacy among civilians, back in 2014 with Resilient Ukraine, we have conducted the research of Resilient Ukraine and non-resilient mosaics. And when we were interviewing people, who did we interview? We were interviewing police, and we also had the priests, we also had activists and the members of the local councils. And we were asking them, what do they think about cybersecurity? What is it? And everyone was saying that is something far away, and the state has to provide it something. The state has to protect us. Okay, so when we were asking about the basic things, the passwords, how you keep the passwords, and we saw that people were keeping them in the wallets next to the bank card, or the passwords were on the last page of the notes. And I see people have their password there. And it concerns many institutions, state and public and private ones. And there are lots of questions here, and that is something where we can develop. So speaking of the cyber incidents, what I've observed, because I was auditing different levels, both in private and public sector and OMS, so we do not have the algorithm on how to act in crisis situation. For example, if my mail was stolen. And I will never forget how in one of the courts the malwares were sent through the mails to all the participants of the proceeding, and this court did not undertake any problems, and they could have placed the announcement on their website, and they could have stated that please do not open the page. And after that, I called them and explained them what to do. So the question to all of us: do all of us know what do we need to do if something like that happens? If we do not, for example, Telegram is not working. Telegram is used a lot, and that is saying a lot about lack of literacy, security literacy. So that is something we can work on. And I remember when I was in different countries, because I was lucky to work in 20 countries around the world, and one catastrophe was happening or something was not working, the SMS were sent, and there were flash SMS on the phones. And when I was in Ukraine, in different parts of the country, when I received the SMS, so it's like if you want to inform on something, go to the website. Sometimes the websites are not opened. And for example, speaking of the international experience in Estonia, in Lithuania, in the US, you get the instruction. For example, if it is the catastrophe 1, 2, 3, 4, what should you do? If you have power outage, what should you do? 1, 2, 3, 4. And unfortunately, in Ukraine, we don't have this algorithm. Speaking of the formula on how everything should have worked, and all the actors of cybersecurity should have acted. That is the normal communication and prevention. So my organization contributes to the cybersecurity resilience through standards for the state, for the general prosecution general to different ministries, what one should do. And also in Hermadas, we educate what to do in crisis situations, how to get ready to this kind of crisis. What should you check in your phone number, some checklists for Hermadas, for authorities. What should you do when you have crises? Because we also have to understand that if an organization works with security, they have lots of data. That can be data of the people, of the families of the servicemen, of the defenders, the missing defenders, and if they are providing humanitarian organization, that is not a level of security. That can be absolutely different threats. And other things which we do in the framework of informing, together with Cyber Police, we have developed the project Cybergate. You can find the information later. You can find the information in two languages, English and Ukrainian. Later, we are going to translate it in the other languages. How can you protect yourself during communication, during work, when you are playing games? Because the games can be also different, and people play in different ways in the educational sphere. How can you protect yourself? How can you and what should children do, for example, if that things happen to them on the internet? Because in my opinion, it's not responding. Well, we have to respond. That is a huge work. But as for prevention, we have taught 1.3 million of Ukrainians on cyber literacy, and the parents are of the adolescent age, and the prosecutors, police officers, and local authorities, the members of the local parliaments, because it's a huge work. Because when you're conducting the trainings, people are changing. We are changing something, information changes, but when you're establishing the resource where you have updated instructions, videos, and checklists, it can work out. So I invite all the partners, if you have any kind of ideas what can be improved. Maybe you want to develop some certain courses, videos, more proper for some topics, because OSCE is not covered so far. For the civil organization, these sector is also not covered, and also the organization has developed a separate tab. Maybe many of you have heard about DIA education, and also we have DIA online security. We have developed, we have made the video simulators, and I think our environment have seen so many videos, and we made video simulators where we have the algorithm, and we give the opportunity to choose. So you have the question, what should you do in this case? And after A, B, and C, you have different scenarios. And then you have the explanation why it is better to do it in this way, not in the other way. And I would like to add the cooperation with the Minister of Internal Affairs, because our organization joined the development of the guidelines for schools, is public, and how to provide the policy of security, what should be the policies. And so far, when we received the letters, we were asked how to turn on Wi-Fi router, and many judges in Ukraine do not know how to work with routers, or how to install VPN, or where it is VPN. Unfortunately, maybe we're in the bubble, and we consider that everyone knows everything, but we have the meetings on Monday, and everyone shares their experience. Can you imagine they do not know what is two-level authentication? And it should be, all of us should have it. So if you want to know more about cybersecurity. My organization is always open. Cybergate is also open, and all information is free of charge, and we are ready for cooperation. Thank you, Anastasia, and thank you for the vivid ending of our today's meeting. I would like to say that we have at least few topics for the future meetings, more specialized ones. And therefore, from my side, I would like to encourage you for the further cooperation with us, and we are always ready to conduct the common exercises or researches with everybody who were present with us today. As a conclusion, I can say that during the war, you cannot pause your life. And depending on how we perceive this realm, it not only future, but also the positive transformation in our societies depend. Resilience is all of us, because from the point of view of all international approaches to resilience, it's formed bottom up. It's based on all of the experiences which we heard today. Therefore, dear friends, dear colleagues, I really appreciate you finding the time today to meet with us. And I really appreciate Ukraine Crisis Center, Crisis Media Center, for the organization of this event and for broadcasting this event. And I wish all of you good, strong health and security, and see you soon.